I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. You had many places you could be tonight, but you chose to be here with me, and for that I am forever grateful. Before we get into tonight's show, I want to do a quick shout out to our good friend Fiel out in Roswell, New Mexico, and all the aliens she has encountered. And maybe in the near future, once you get enough video footage of the aliens and pictures of the aliens, we can bring you on the show to share that with the audience. Tonight's lead story: over the past week, Russia has been sending nuclear-capable bombers escorted by fighter jets towards American airspace. In response, U.S. Air Force sent up fighter aircraft to intercept them in a show of force and steer them away. Now, first, let me tell you that that is not unusual. Russia does that constantly, a lot. Been going on back during the Cold War, still happening today. What is unusual is this time they're escorted by fighter aircraft, and they're sending different types of bombers now. Where before it was their old prop engine bomber, and now they're sending not only that, but also their jet-powered bombers. So that's a little discerning, to say the least. Russia is also doing the same to other NATO countries, along with China doing that towards Taiwan. Then today, back on Tuesday of this week, U.S. State Department put out a travel alert for all Americans heading to or in Russia. The travel alert says Americans are not allowed to travel to Russia until further notice, and all Americans in Russia should leave immediately. You're reading between the lines yet? There are several thousand Americans in Russia that are working with contractors from different companies. Now today, in the event of that Russia launches an attack or invasion against Estonia, which they've already threatened to do, the United States will enter the conflict. According to the head of the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin spoke today at a meeting of NATO defense ministers in Brussels, Belgium. The conference focused heavily on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is approaching its first one-year anniversary. Austin was asked by a reporter how the country could be confined. They're having the backing of U.S. military might in the event of a Russian invasion. You know, I just point out what our President Biden has already said. He said a number of times what I've also said. Our commitment to Article 5 is ironclad. And we take that very serious, and we will live up to our commitments, Austin told the press. Article 5 of NATO's Washington Treaty is known as the Principles of Collective Defense. It obligates all member countries of NATO to come to the aid of another member whose sovereignty or territorial integrity might be under threat. NATO defines it as being at the very heart of NATO's founding treaty. The Defense Secretary explained that the U.S. military has maintained a comprehensive presence with the Balkans since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We also set up, back in Madrid, our president made the decision to rotate forces in and out of the Baltics on a constant basis in the heel-to-toe fashion so that we have the, consistent presence. We've lived up to that. We'll continue to live up to it, Austin said. Austin touted his level of military presence as a promise kept, stating that similar promises of military support would be kept if necessary. And the final thing I would just point out to you is that prior to the Russian invasion, I met with your Minister of Defense, and I told him that if Russia invaded Ukraine, we would deploy forces to Estonia the next day. And we did. We were the first to be in there, and we meant every word of it. And we'll live up to our commitments going forward. So we are committed to Article 5, and you can bet on it. Patriots, I've been saying this for a long time, and I will continue to say it even now, as many other veterans of the military going back, those that are still alive from World War II, especially those that were around during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we are closer to nuclear war with Russia and China than at any time present and past, thanks to our failed leadership. America is back in the Cold War with Russia. Sadly, World War III, which would be the end of civilization, could literally kick off at any moment. And that should upset every human on planet Earth, regardless of where you live and regardless of your political party. Okay, let's talk about the UFOs and UAPs. Boy, do we have some interesting information about that tonight. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy was one of the senators giving the classified briefing on the recent UFO UAP shootdowns. 4 objects have been shot down over North American airspace since February 4th. The first, as we all know, was identified by the Pentagon as a Chinese surveillance balloon. Sadly, now we're finding out that NORAD tracked that balloon from the time it launched over in China territory and knew about it the entire time it was coming over here. So there was time that we could have shot it down before it crossed into American territory. Not to mention all the different locations that it could have been shot down way before it transited across the entire country. The U.S. Department has not confirmed the nature of the remaining of the other 3 objects. Intelligence officials are considering as a leading explanation that these could be tied to commercial or research entities. The White House said this past Tuesday. Senators received a classified briefing on Tuesday. It was delivered by officials from the Department of Defense, NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, and the United States Northern Command, as well as the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Speaking to the media following the briefing, several senators are now on record stating some of the things that came out of that briefing. Now, they're limited on what they can say because they're classified briefings. It's only set up for them. And we, the public, are not supposed to know what's in classified briefings. But thanks to these brave senators who have stepped forward, we have a little bit of insight into what took place in the briefing. Speaking to the media following the briefing, Louisiana Senator John Kennedy said officials had not been able to locate the remains of these 3 objects yet, with the exclusion of the spy balloon, which they're still recovering. It is clear to me this is not a recent phenomenon, he told reporters, and it's going back to at least 2017. And of course, we know that it goes all the way back to the 1940s with the Roswell incident. Calling for more transparency, he said, if you're confused by what's coming out of the Department of Defense or the White House, you understand the situation perfectly. Concluding his comments to the gathered media, Kennedy added, lock your doors tonight. 10 days ago, we were led to believe that our skies are clear, but now we have unidentified objects and Chinese spy balloons raining down like confetti. The GOP senator wrote on Twitter after his briefing. On February 10th, the Department of Defense said a U.S. F-22 jet fighter shot down an unidentified high-altitude object flying around 40,000 feet above northern Alaska. President Joe Biden had ordered the shooting down of the object, the Pentagon said, and the object posed a risk to civilian flight. The object fell into sea ice, and recovery operations, although are underway, have been very difficult, and so far they have found nothing. On February 11th, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, took down an unidentified flying object flying over Canadian airspace. The following day, an F-16 fighter jet fired a missile to successfully shoot down an unidentified flying object at 20,000 feet over Lake Huron in Michigan, the Pentagon confirmed. We did not assess it to be a military threat to anything on the ground, but assessed it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities, the Defense Department said. And of course, like I told you in last Tuesday night show, how can you claim something's not a threat to the rest of us if you don't know what it is you shot down? You cannot say that. That is absolutely a no-merit statement. And if you say you had to shoot it down because it could interfere with civilian air traffic, guess what? Then it interferes with all those on board the jet and all those on the ground from the debris of the jet falling out of the sky from colliding with the object. So what's coming out of the minds of the powers that be just doesn't add up anymore. The object shot down on Sunday was the fourth unidentified object targeted by U.S. missiles in a little over a week. First object, as we all know, was taken down over South Carolina on February 4th, identified by the Department of Defense as the Chinese surveillance balloon. A press briefing back on Monday, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, ruled out suggestion of alien involvement in the three unidentified objects shot down on consecutive days. There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity, she said, adding she wanted to make sure that the American people knew that. Well, it's pretty neat that she, like the Pentagon and the powers that be, know exactly what it isn't when they don't know what it was and haven't recovered it. But rest assured, it's not from another planet. That's what the White House is saying. Connecticut Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal, who was in the classified briefing, said the American people need and deserve to know more. There's a lot of information presented to us that could have been told to the American people without any harm to sources or methods or national security. And the American people need to know more so they'll have more confidence in our national security. You're correct. Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who was also there, said that 99% of what was discussed in that room today can be made public without compromising security in this country, and he urges the Pentagon and the White House to just tell the American public what they told us. Senator Dan Crenshaw, Republican Texas, broke down some of the specifics of what Congress was told regarding the unidentified flying objects that the U.S. continues to shoot out of the sky. Everyone wants answers on the objects flying over the United States. Today, members of Congress finally got more information from senior military officials, he said. We still don't know what these objects were. We're calling them unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs. And I'll stop right there for a moment for any of you that are unfamiliar with that. The Pentagon has already come out and admitted this happened in the beginning of COVID, so a lot of people missed it. They gave briefings to the president, Trump, at the time. They also gave briefings to Congress, and they held a briefing that you can go look up right here on YouTube and see the whole damn thing, where they admit that, yes, there are things flying around planet Earth that we do not know what they are, and they're able to do things that defy everything we know about aerodynamics and speed and shape, going under the water, coming back out, flying at speeds that are way faster than any aircraft we have, able to hover, evade. And they released, first it was leaked, then they went ahead and released and said, yes, it was true, videos from F-18 fighter aircraft launched off of aircraft carriers to go intercept these UFOs to see what the hell they were. You can also see those videos right here on YouTube. It's been declassified, and the Pentagon has said, yes, they're real. It's not edited. We don't know what we're up against. What we do know is it doesn't appear to be anything that we know as humans with technology here on planet Earth. So what the Pentagon did was they put together a task force to get more military pilots to come forward, as well as civilian pilots, to discuss openly the UFO phenomenon and anything they've seen or encountered or video or pictures. Because in the past, when pilots do that, well, when they report seeing a UFO, they get looked at as an idiot or somebody that's a conspiracy theorist. They're afraid of losing their job in the airlines, or they're afraid of losing their job in the military. So the Pentagon changed the name from unidentified flying object, UFO, and reclassified it as UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And now pilots can come forward, military and civilian, and discuss openly. So there's no stigma tied from what happened with the UFO thing to what's happening now. And they can continue to study this further and try and figure out what it is and or where it's from. I mean, let's face it. If it's coming from another country, they have leaps and bounds of technology above everything we do here in America. And we need to know that. If it's coming from another part of our universe, it would be nice to know that too. Continuing on, today members of Congress finally got more information from senior military officials, Crenshaw said. We still don't know what the objects are. We're calling them unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. Crenshaw, a former Navy SEAL and combat veteran who served multiple combat tours overseas, said the U.S. knew what the Chinese spy balloon was and that steps were taken to prevent data from going back to China. But the UAPs were in FAA commercial zones and were not outfitted with any type of signal for navigation or navigation lights. As to why these objects are being found now, the congressman said there have been many more surveillance, which result in more objects being tracked. After the objects moved over Department of Defense facilities and posed a threat to commercial flight, they were shot down. Newer technology has allowed for more detection in recent years. UAPs weren't detected because our radars were not adjusted for slow-moving and hovering objects. There are obviously still a lot we need to know, Crenshaw said. I'm going to continue pushing for transparency so Americans know what's going on in the skies above our country. And the fact that they're saying they can't find the objects is kind of alarming, because I can assure you, as an aviator myself and former Army aviator and former veteran in the military, that when we shoot down an object from the sky and it's pre-planned, like these were, it's coordinated to know exactly where they're going to shoot it down to make damn sure it's not going to hit people on the ground and kill them, unless it's obviously a conflict with jets and missiles shooting at each other. But we know exactly the coordinates of where it's going to be shot down at. We have spy satellites. We have airborne radar-controlled aircraft that monitor the exact point of impact of the missile. They can figure out all the weather patterns, the air speeds, wind drift, and pinpoint exactly where the debris fall within about a 10-foot section. So for them to be saying we can't find these objects, either one, they're lying because they found them and they don't want us to know what they are, or the objects have the ability to do things like vanish. They've already got the ability to do things that defy aerodynamics. Moving on. An Oregon judge accused sheriffs who, citing the Constitution, refused to enforce federal and state gun laws of embracing racist and white nationalist ideologies. The Oregon Court of Appeals on Wednesday ruled that local governments in the state cannot declare themselves Second Amendment sanctuary areas and prohibited police from enforcing statewide gun laws. It was the first court defeat for the concept, which has been adopted by as many as 1,200 conservative local governments in response to Democrat-run cities and local jurisdictions that have declared themselves sanctuary cities for illegal aliens. In other words, we're going to call our area a sanctuary city or a sanctuary county or a sanctuary state against the federal government infringing on our Second Amendment rights. Some of these ordinances are symbolic, but the court reviewed a measure enacted in Columbia County that would have imposed thousands of dollars in fines on officials who attempted to enforce federal and state gun laws. It said the ordinance would create a patchwork quilt of firearm laws in Oregon, where firearm regulations that apply in some counties would not apply in Columbia County, which the court found would violate state law. The county ordinance was backed by gun right groups, including the Oregon Firearms Federation and Gun Owners of America. While disappointed with the ruling overall, these groups expressed shock and anger and frightening the current options of Chief Judge Jim Agan, who accused the Gun Owners of America of advancing conspiracy theories about the United Nations and invoking anti-Semitic and racist tropes. During the course of the argument, counsel referred to alleged United Nations and international firearm laws. Those references allude to the conspiracy theory that the UN has or will impose mandates upon the federal government that will require state and local laws and governments to be abiding by the UN, specifically to disarm American public in violation of the Second Amendment. In other words, interveners came before the court and referenced UN mandates, which, as explained below, is a well-documented trope meant to invoke white supremacy, anti-Semitic fears, or a takeover of our country by outsiders and minorities who are manipulated by an elite class of supervillains, the judge said. Now, good gosh. Give me a second. what happened is these liberal areas, like out in California, Washington State, Oregon, New York, Minneapolis, Minnesota, these Democrats that run the city councils or run the state are coming up with laws restricting things on the Second Amendment. And we have those that are for the Constitution, Second Amendment rights. In law enforcement, local law enforcement, meaning county sheriffs and city police chiefs, stepping forward and saying, you can write all the laws you would like. We will not enforce your unconstitutional laws. That's what this is about. And now that makes the law enforcement officers, the sheriffs and the chief of police, racist bigots, according to this judge. Gun Owners of America forcefully denied this characterization of their argument. While we're disappointed in this ruling against the clear vote of the people, we are more alarmed by the righteous secondary opinion by Judge Egan, said Eric Pratt, Senior Vice President of Gun Owners of America. These accusations and appointed countermeasure have no basis in fact or the law. The radical viewpoints held by this judge are dangerous to the constitutional doctrine and principle. Judge Egan asserted that the sanctuary jurisdiction policies advocated the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association with Columbian County Ordinance was based on, have their organs in the ideology of white supremacist nationalism, which runs contrary to the tenets of our constitutional republic. Here's what needs to happen. We need to start a GoFundMe page to get all the conservatives and Republicans in these liberal run areas that are doing all this crazy shit that can't afford to move. The GoFundMe page would allow them to dip into this coffer and pay for their U-Haul because they need to get the hell out of there. California, for instance, cannot be saved. Done, write it off. I don't see it happening in my lifetime. In Oregon and Washington State and New York and Minnesota, the list goes on and on. It's getting stupid. And sadly, worse every day. The Biden administration turned down a request for federal disaster assistance from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine in the aftermath of the train derailment in the state earlier this month that led to a large release of toxic chemicals. I will repeat that. The Biden administration turned down a request for federal disaster assistance for that train derailment. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, told Ohio's state government that it was not eligible for disaster assistance to help the community recover from the toxic spill. Dan Tenery, a spokesman for DeWine, the governor, told Fox News Digital today. Tenery explained that FEMA believed the incident didn't qualify as traditional disaster, such as a tornado or a hurricane, for which it usually provides assistance. So unless it's a tornado or a hurricane or a flood, the federal government's not going to help. It was a freaking train derailment with chemical cars that are ruining the entire town, endangering people that are getting sick. Their pets are dying. Fish are bellying up all in the lakes and streams. It's a freaking disaster. It's contaminated the water system. It's horrible. And the powers that be, this kind of reminds me of Hurricane Katrina, when the FEMA director at the time, under the Bush administration, the only job he had ever done in his life before he was selected to do that was he was a judge for horse competitions, where they determine which horse gets a blue ribbon for being such a pretty breed. That was what was on his resume. Palomino, gets a blue ribbon. And calling out the next horse. Like, what the hell are we doing? Why is Biden putting people in charge of shit that don't know anything about what they're doing? And in this case, it happens to be Mr. Butlick, who doesn't know a damn thing about what he's doing. And he's really pissed off this town in Ohio, which is coming next. The DeWine administration has been in daily contact with FEMA to discuss the need for federal support. However, FEMA continues to tell the governor Ohio is not eligible for the assistance. Governor DeWine will continue working with FEMA to determine what assistance they can provide. We are closely coordinated with the EPA, Homeland Security, CDC, who are helping to test water and air quality and conduct public health assessments. FEMA spokesperson Jeremy Edwards told Fox News Digital in a statement. Perenni noted, though, that the governor was able to secure some health assistance from the Department of Health and Human Services and will go towards helping local residents with any medical care costs that stem from this accident. He added that the Norfolk Southern Railroad, the operator of the derailed train, has been providing financial assistance to the community. That's great. But that the DeWine administration was prepared to hold the company's feet to the fire to ensure it continues to support the community. The Ohio Attorney General's office was prepared to intervene in Norfolk Southern Railroad let up on its relief efforts if it let up. The people of East Palestine need to be made whole, Tranny said. To make matters worse, Transportation Secretary Butlicker was scheduled to be at a community town hall today to address this crisis, and all the townspeople were there. And guess what? He was a no-show, and the people got very pissed off. How is it possible that he just didn't appear? Then today, another train has derailed with hazardous material in Van Bruin Township outside of Detroit, Michigan. The cause of the derailment is unknown at this time. Police told Fox 2 Detroit that there were no injuries and the area currently is not classified as a hazmat situation, although it had cars with chemicals on them. Officials that spoke to WXYZ, WXYZ, yeah, that's the name of this freaking radio station, which reported at least 6 cars were seen off the track, said one of them was definitely carrying hazardous materials. Of course, this derailment comes less than 2 weeks after the train carrying the toxic chemicals derailed in Ohio. Police told Fox 2 Detroit that roads will be closed off in the area while an investigation is ongoing, including the EPA. Representative Debbie Dingell, Democrat, Michigan, said in a statement obtained by Fox News Detroit. At this time, no one is aware of the release of any hazardous materials. The car carrying hazardous materials has been put upright and is being removed from the area of the other derailed cars. The EPA is dispatching a team to ensure public safety. The Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and the Energy also said it is aware of the train derailment in Van Bruin Township, Wayne County, where internal reports indicate no threat to the public from this derailment. EGLE personnel are on their way to the scene to assist assess the situation, it added. Well, maybe, possibly, Transportation Secretary Mr. Butlick and FEMA will show up for any town hall meetings that they have there and see if they can provide assistance if need be. But what's happening in Ohio is, let's back up. It's not just these two derailments. I haven't reported on all of them in the past. I probably should start doing that more often because they're not getting much coverage. But this is happening all over America right now. There are trains derailing, like literally several a month. And it's only a matter of time before there's a huge disaster where many, many people get sick, injured, or killed. And Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Butlick, has decided that any contractor that's going to bid on helping to fix the rail situation must have a plan that he approves in advance showing their diversity hiring program. He's more concerned over making sure that the people that are fixing the rails, instead of highly qualified, are women, whites and blacks, Muslim, Hispanics, LGBTQ, the whole freaking list of the alphabet must be included in the hiring process. That's the guy in charge of our transportation situation. Nothing at all against gay people. I have friends that are gay that I served in the military with, that I served in law enforcement with. One of my moderators is a gay man. They are even upset over what this Secretary of Transportation is doing and saying. It's not right. That's just like the FAA a couple of years ago wanting to make sure that the airlines have a diversity program for hiring pilots. Instead of hiring the most qualified pilot to fly you around the sky, first we need to hire some of every other sexual orientation and race. And eventually that got shut down by Donald Trump because it was stupid. It was insane. Doesn't matter what race you are. It's racist to say that this is what you have to do in order to get a contract. That's racist. It's racist against anyone that's qualified to do that particular job. But yet, these Democrats and liberals don't seem to understand that concept. Speaking of, the Democrats and liberals are up in arms tonight because, drum roll, the Justice Department has informed lawyers for Republican Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida and multiple witnesses that it will not bring charges against him for the federal sex trafficking investigation that they've been doing for over a year now. Senior officials reached out to lawyers for multiple witnesses on Wednesday. A source familiar with the matter told CNN, who's also upset, to inform them of the decision not to prosecute the senator. The final decision was made by the Department of Justice leadership after investigators recommended against charges against him. We have spoken with the Department of Justice and been informed that they have concluded their investigation into Congressman Gaetz, not Senator, I'm sorry, and alleges related to sex trafficking and obstruction of justice, and they've determined not to bring charges against him. Gaetz lawyer Mark Mertzley and Isabel Krishner said in a statement. Tim Jansen, a high-powered lawyer representing the congressman's girlfriend, said the Department of Justice officials reached out to him Wednesday and told him they will not be charging Gaetz. The ex-girlfriend was a key witness in the case and had testified before the grand jury in Orlando last year. The congressman's office said in a separate statement, the department informed them that the investigation has ended and no charges will be brought. The Department of Justice formal decision not to charge Gaetz, who has been serving in Congress since 2017, marks the end of a year-long running investigation to allegations that the congressman violated federal law by paying for sex, including with women who are younger than 18 years of age. Gaetz has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Prosecutors working on the case recommended against charging Gaetz in September of last year, in part because of questions over whether the witnesses in the investigation would be perceived as credible before the jury, CNN reported. But the final decision not to move forward with charges came from senior department officials. The investigation to Gaetz began in late 2020 under then Attorney General Bill Barr, but ramped up significantly after Gaetz' close friend, Joel Greensberg, pleaded guilty to 6 federal crimes, including sex trafficking charge, and agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. Greensberg cooperation led investigators to look at Gaetz, along with other allies of Greensberg, for any alleged sex trafficking and obstruction of justice. The investigation also scrutinized several of Gaetz' associates, including Dr. Jason Perazio, who accompanied Gaetz on a 2018 trip to the Bahamas that was a key force of the investigators. Perazio was pushed out of his medical practice after his name surfaced in some reports about the investigation. In a statement, his attorney, David Haas, said, "Today, we are informed by the Department of Justice that it is ending this investigation. The doctor requests that he and his family privacy be respected, as his last few years have been extremely difficult to endure." 2 other people in Gaetz' orbit also became key cooperators, including the ex-girlfriend who worked on Capitol Hill and has been linked to Gaetz as far back as the summer of 2017, and a Florida radio host who began cooperating after pleading guilty in a separate bribery scheme. Then, by late 2020, there were several signs that the Justice Department's case had nearly ground to a halt. The most obvious indicator was that prosecutors finally agreed to schedule a sentencing date for Greensberg after months of delays while he continued to cooperate with the ongoing Gaetz probe. Greensberg was sentenced to 11 years in prison back in December. Basically, after the Department of Justice and the FBI interviewed all these people that came forward and said that Representative Gaetz was sex trafficking underage girls, they found absolutely zero credibility to any of it. And currently, which I'll be reporting on in the near future once I have more facts of this, but it's being reported tonight, actually, some of it is, that the new investigation involving this is looking at those that were conspiring to destroy Representative Gaetz' credibility. Kind of like what happened with Donald Trump. That's right. There was an extortion going on. There are people that are going to be named that told Gaetz, and I don't know if it was in person or if it was in email or text messages. I hope it was in some type of writing in email or text messaging, that if you pay us X amount of millions of dollars, then we will not go forward with these allegations. So it's extortion at this point. And that's where the investigation turned to while they were looking at him. This next story is upsetting, should be upsetting to everyone, especially anyone that has been accused of being a racist, and anyone that is Black that's a conservative or Republican. Hell, it should upset even the Democrats, but it doesn't, sadly. The name Uncle Tom is a racist comment that refers to any black person who sides with Republicans or conservatives. Democrat Georgia State Senator Amiel Jones, who is a black man, smeared Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas as an Uncle Tom. This after the Georgia State Senate approved placing a statue of Thomas at the state capitol. Senator Jones believes Justice Thomas is a traitor to his racial group. I'm just trying to tell you what we have in the African American community when we talk about a person of color that goes back historically to the days of slavery, and that person betrayed his own community. We have a term in the black community, he went on, and that term is Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom is either fictional or non-fictional character. I don't really know the origins of Uncle Tom, but it talks about a person who back during the days of slavery sold his soul to the slave masters. This is a sitting member of Congress, a black man, referring to a Supreme Court justice, a black man, is an Uncle Tom. Commentators across all social media platforms today slam the state senator for a variety of angles for his despairing comparison. The Federalist senior contributor Benjamin Wintergate said that this is an insult and part of a long tradition from Democrats. Justice Thomas, one of the greatest Americans in our history, and perhaps the most revolutionary and exceptional justice of at least the last century, will never, ever stop paying for the crime of being a black conservative, he wrote. What's old is new again for the Democrats. Radio host Derek Hunter said, "Know your place. Senator Jones is making sure black men learn Democrats do not want them thinking for themselves." Pro-life outlet Life News tweeted, "A Democrat legislator calls Justice Clarence Thomas an Uncle Tom because he's conservative. There is nothing the left hates more than black Americans who don't conform to their agenda." And I agree 100%. I used to be a Democrat right here in the South. Trust me when I say that when you talk about racist bigots in America, it's the Democrat Party that all falls under. And today, sadly, there are still more racist bigots embedded in the Democrat Party than in any other organization, to include those country fucks called the KKK. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insanity. And it's sad. Other commentators spoke about Thomas' own history, suggesting that Democrats are using double standards when they criticize him in such terms. Ex-strategist LLC senior digital strategist Greg Prince questioned in a tweet, "Clarence Thomas may have been born in Georgia in poverty during segregation and grew up to become the second black justice of the Supreme Court. But he can read the Constitution and see there's no right to kill unborn babies. Therefore, he is an Uncle Tom." And that's what this all goes back to, is abortion. Sonny Face, who I have no idea who the hell that is, but obviously it's a big person on Twitter, who's a prominent conservative person, tweeted, "Clarence Thomas was born to former descendants of slaves, grew up poor in the Jim Crow South, and speaks English as a second language. If he voted differently on abortion, Democrats would consider him one of the leading inspirational stories of the modern era." GOP political director Elliot Echoes wrote, "Clarence Thomas was raised by a single mom and became a Supreme Court justice. His life has been remarkable. For Democrats to try and smear him is disgusting. Clarence Thomas was a liberal. Every city across this country would have a statue of him. The host of the Barrington Report and Black former Democrat candidate for Georgia State Representative Barrington Martin II wrote, George Floyd can have a statue, and you won't utter a word about that. But Clarence Thomas is an architect that has suppressed race, and you idiotically called him an Uncle Tom in front of your colleagues. Thank you for confirming what I already thought about you. Meanwhile, some liberal Twitter users appeared to say they wished that the justice had trended on Twitter due to death or illness. Damn it, I saw Clarence Thomas trending and had some very evil hope in my heart. Director Jen McGowan wrote. No such luck. Estes Joel Netherland wrote, Clarence Thomas is trending, but it's not for the reasons you had hoped. They wish him dead. They wish the man death. The ongoing saga of classified documents, which started with Donald Trump and the Mar-a-Lago raid, went on to Joe Biden, went on to Mike Pence now. Let's talk a little bit about that. The FBI has searched now. First it was Joe Biden's homes, then it was his office at the Penn Center, and now the University of Delaware in connection with President Biden's mishandling of classified documents. And he reminds me of Joe Biden on The View. I don't know if y'all saw this. You can look it up here on YouTube. It's freaking hilarious. Where she just goes on this rant about, we had him. We had Donald Trump. We had him. The man, it's like he's got Teflon on him. Now all of a sudden, Biden documents start showing up everywhere. And now we can't prosecute Donald Trump. Or something to that. I don't know if that's exact words, but it was something similar to that. And she just got very pissed off that Donald Trump, she thought, was going to go to prison over these documents. And now Biden's got documents coming out of his ass everywhere he associated. So far, the FBI says they haven't found any documents at the Delaware location that Biden used to use. But the FBI continues to go through documents and will determine if some are classified. Biden's legal team has reportedly been cooperating with investigators, per the source. University of Delaware is the president's alma mater and home to the Biden School of Public Policy and Administration. The FBI searched on two separate occasions, but it was not immediately clear when the searches occurred. The White House has declined to comment, referring all questions to the Department of Justice. The FBI search is the latest development in Biden's ongoing classified document scandal. Last month, Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel to investigate Biden's handling of classified documents, which were discovered in both his Wilmington homes and the Penn Biden Center. In addition to the Biden and former President Trump, former Vice President Mike Pence also revealed that he had found classified documents in his Indiana home shortly after ordering a search of his records. Pence said he takes full responsibility for his possession of the classified documents. On a side note, Obama and Clinton made damn sure they put all theirs through a shredder and then threw it in their fireplace to burn up what was left of that because they knew what was coming down the pipeline. So for the FBI to go look at them would just be now useless because let's say if they didn't do that, shredder and fireplace, they're dumber than we all thought they were. Anyhow, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here. Thank you for that. I sure do appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Please share it on your social media platforms and let everybody know about the Douglas Ducote Show. We're live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you also haven't already checked out DouglasDucote.com, please do so. Also, my other YouTube channel, Charlie Hotel 47, and in the description of this video and all my videos, you can see the other places you can follow me on social media accounts. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. And folks, if you do not know what angel families are, or you do not know what blue and gold star families are, please research that. Type it into your search engine on the internet, whichever one you use, because they need our support more now than ever before, because this current administration is pissing on the graves of their loved ones, and that is un-American and unacceptable. Thank you all. God bless you. Anything breaks between now and next Tuesday, I'll be sure to put out a video about it or do a live show. Other than that, hope you have a wonderful and blessed night and a wonderful and blessed weekend. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, please be safe. I'll see you soon. Thank you. God bless.